Hello everyone. I'm not sure if anyone's here yet, but it's 2 minutes before 7, so I'm thinking we might as well start, not to be late. Okay, there we go. So, 2 minutes. You know, we should talk about weather, which is lovely in Barcelona, where I am, and hopefully is lovely in London. I've heard good things lately about London weather. Poland has good weather. So, you know, good times. Just opening some of my documents, because I think they might be useful. And this is my cat. I don't know if you see him. There we go. Another YouTube cat video. With that out of the way, I think we can slowly, gently ease our way into the ICO registrations. Feel free to talk to me on the chat. In any circumstance, I'll do everything I can to answer all questions, and we'll, go through it together, and we'll hopefully not be interrupted anymore. Just opening the ICO page, and on the AC, and I think we better start. So on the ICO page, and by the way, you can refer to the Monday chat as well. It lasted the ungodly hour and a half, close to 2 hours, and feel free. And I'm hopeful we can do the same thing today if you're not too tired. So let's see. We have ICO, and we have the button to register. Renew or search the register. So I think that we want register. And then we have a nice message about that they're having some problems with the registration form, which I have anticipated. And hopefully it will let us use the form. But it's nice of them to tell us, and also it does give us some leeway if we don't make it. Then, I'd definitely, if I wouldn't be able to register, I would definitely go to them and say, well, look, your form was faulty at some point, so you have to give me some leeway. And I think that they did themselves say that they're not going to be difficult about this. So what we have first, we have register now, and then we have not sure if you need to register. Take our quick self-assessment to find out. So I think that we should take the quick self-assessment, because some people had issues with it, and we can just go over it quickly and find out if we have anything that's worth solving. It's supposed to take only 5 minutes. Stop being a nuisance. This is, he's a rescue, so he's all into asserting his dominance. He owes me. So, okay. Let's go. Registration self-assessment question 1. Do you use CCTV for the purposes of crime prevention? I actually have an issue with that, because I have CCTV in my house here in Spain, and my office is, besides being the business operations manager for the ECPD, I do have my own little company. So I am already registered, but I'm sort of going through the registration as I used to work as a translator and interpreter, general linguist for quite a few years. So this is sort of what I'm doing. I'm mock registering. So I don't know if I use CCTV for the purposes of crime prevention. I don't think so, because I don't really take any pictures with it. But if you have CCTV on your house, and your house is your office, this is something to think about. But I'm going with no. If anyone has any questions. I'm watching the chat, at least I'm trying to watch the chat, so feel free. So I'm going with no and going with the next question. And are you processing personal information? And this is the first, well, second hurdle, so to speak, because what we're doing is, what is personal information? What does it mean to process it? And they give us a definition. And processing means doing any of the following: obtaining, recording, storing, updating, and sharing information. And personal information is any detail about a living individual that can be used on its own or with other data to identify them. So this is what a lot of people mean by saying that that even business email is a personal email, so to speak, if somebody is identifiable on its basis. I would say, I said this on yesterday, and I would say it again, my business email, which is Karolina at Organize, the little company that I have, that this is personal data. So according to that definition, so that's that. And we do obtain it, I think. Well, I do. I obtain it. This is when I used to be a translator. I worked mostly with private clients, but I did very little work for agencies. But I did some of it. But we do obtain the information. I do record it because, I don't really delete any of my emails, given that there are some important details in there. Well, now I have to, but I don't do it unless I have to, and I don't really update it, but and I don't share it, but I do obtain it and I do record it. So there we go. I'm processing personal information. For me, it's a yes. So then the next question is number 3. Do you process the information electronically? Which is using they give us a nice definition, and this is using computers or any system that processes the information automatically, which is also CCTVs and digital cameras and smartphones and the credit card machines and any call logging systems, the clocking machines and audio-visual capture and storage systems. I think this is a resounding yes for me, and I think that, oh, hi! Hi, sorry, didn't see you there. Could you be there and tell me your name? Because I don't remember. Were you Karen? Or Katrina, and I really don't want to refer to you as Kay. But I'm really happy your connection is working. I'm really happy to see you here today. Hopefully, we'll get through it. So anyway, I do process the information electronically, and if you're watching this on your computers, then, oh, Kirsten, I'm sorry, I didn't read it. Thank you ever so much. So there we go. That would have saved me this conundrum. So anyway, we are processing the information electronically. Let's see question 4. Is your organization responsible for deciding how the information is processed? In my little company, so the gist is that any work related into like email address, phone number of contacts at agencies counts as personal info. This is my idea, yes. Yes, I should think so. I'm not, again, disclaimer, not an expert, not a lawyer, just a person I think possessed of a modicum of common sense, and I would class it like that. If I was unsure, I would still class it like that to be certain. So if you have, or planning to have a private client, I think, this might be irrelevant anyway. But yeah, I should think so. If it's like a generic email, somebody said to me, like info at, let's say, and you know that this is an agency that employs a lot of people, that you can't really identify this person, you'd have to check into the signature, because if you have their name and surname in the signature, or even the first name, they can still be identified by the basis of this email, basically. So if you get an email from a project manager called, let's say, Amy, and she's called, and she's at info@translation agency. Yeah, yes. Okay, so is my organization responsible for deciding how the information is processed? Well, as my little linguistic thing, yes. It's sole traders. We decide for ourselves what to do with the information. So I should think, to most of us that would apply. And the number 5, do you only process information for one of the following purposes? So one of these should be the only purpose. Judicial functions? Well, I certainly don't. Domestic or recreational reasons, i.e. information relating to a hobby, not as a company. I do have a hobby, and I do sometimes process information in relation to it, but this has nothing to do with my, let's say, past translation work. Or to maintain, do I only process information to maintain a public register? If I am required by law to make the information publicly available? Well, I don't. I wouldn't think most linguists would. So this is no for me. And this is something that might raise some questions, because I certainly had some questions raised about it, and we had a very nice discussion about it yesterday. You're welcome to check it out as well. But this is, are you a non-for-profit organization that qualifies for an exemption? Which I understand personally, not a lawyer, not an expert. I understand it is cats being naughty. Anyway, so if you are a non-for-profit organization, you have to be, and then you have to check if you qualify for an exemption. I, as my little translation company thing from before, was definitely not a charity. I was willing to help, but I definitely wanted to make the profit. And I did make a little profit, so, there we go. But this is the guidance, and this is what people pointed out. I'll read it out. Answer yes if your organization was established for non-profit making purposes and does not make a profit. This is the first part. Also answer yes if your organization makes a profit for its own purposes, as long as the profit is not used to enrich others. And the second part, this is something that people said. For example, I'm a sole trader. So I don't want to, I think that my organization does make a profit, but it makes a profit for me, which is only for its own purposes. So I don't use this profit to enrich others. And on this basis, there were people who said that, they don't think that they should, they have to register because, they qualify as a non-profit organization exempt. To be honest, this is a question for somebody much more knowledgeable than I am, but I welcome any discussion that, any challenges that you throw my way, but I'll give you my take on it if you like to hear it. And basically speaking, I would say personally that if you think you're a charity, check if you qualify for this exemption. If you're not a charity, I think you might be opening yourself to a very strong argument against, your reason for not registering. So if you're not, if you don't want to register, you're looking for a reason not to register, I'm not sure if this is the reason that would, stand logically. So, but there are some more points in this one. So you must, 4 points, only process information necessary to establish or maintain membership or support. So in addition to only making a profit for its own purposes, you only process information which is necessary to establish membership or support, which is, well, if you translate, you don't. Also, only process information necessary to provide or administer activities for people who are members or have regular contact with the organization, which is also, technically speaking, if you do translate, you don't administer activities. Also, only share the information with people and organizations necessary to carry out the organization's activities. And only keep the information while the individual is a member or supporter, or as long as necessary for member supporter administration. So for me, these points, I didn't mention it yesterday, but I did think about it quite a bit. And I do think that, for me, again, I wouldn't interpret it as I don't have to register myself. I would definitely think this is for organizations. This is for somebody who has members. If, for example, Translators Without Borders, who do translate quite a bit, wanted to check, then I would definitely say that, that they pass the first hurdle. They are indeed an organization and they are indeed a charity, and then they'd have to check if this is how they process the information they have. So I'm going to go with no, because I don't think I'm a non-for-profit. And now we are 7. Are you processing information for any of the following purposes? And this is another huge one, because this is where people said we can't really say, because there's no linguists there, but still we have accountancy and auditing, which I mentioned yesterday and I will repeat today. For me, this is how I would classify how I processed the information with my little language company before, because if I do my own accountancy, I issue invoices, then I do accountancy, so then I definitely process information for one of these purposes, and we have to just mark 1. So this qualifies me. If you, I think we'd be hard pressed to find a sole trader that doesn't process their own invoices. We had, again, some lively discussion about it yesterday, and I think that there is also a very good argument for checking consultancy and advisory services for those of us who have a title consultant or title specialist or any other, not everybody titles themselves as translator and interpreter. I classified myself as a legal linguist because that was my specialization. So technically speaking, I could also say, I'm consulting, because if a client pays you for consulting, for discussion, and if they do pay you for your know-how, and they take the information from you, you can technically say, definitely in the lack of a better explanation, that you're consulting. So this is also something. Another thing, so for me, this is, also we do have the research there, which sometimes some of us do for clients. Hi, Julia. I'm not looking at the registration yet. We are finishing with the self-assessment. We're going to start with the registration in a minute, because I don't think there aren't many questions. So, this means that we're all good. And if anyone, again, wants to say anything, you're perfectly welcome to. And actually, let me just double check, because I would like to make sure that all images, yes. Okay, so I'm going with accountancy, and I don't see anybody making the argument that, we shouldn't do it, so I'm going with it. We don't need to discuss it any further, and I get the expected message that you need to register. Click now. I'm clicking now. And there we go. We're in a new registration, and they tell us it's about 15 minutes to complete. I don't want to take your whole Monday evening. I realize you have the whole week before you, but we will go through it and see what is going on. So first, there is an About You section, and in this section we have organization, an organization type, which is, for most of us, I think this is going to be individual/sole trader. And there is a little help button underneath it, so which is, and this directs us to the FAQs. So what they say is, sole traders, you need to provide the full name of the individual, and the limited companies are the full name, you provide the full name of the company. And if you do have more than one, you register separately, you register each time with the companies, because I know a lot of us can have a lot on our plates. I did all of it when I used to work as a linguist. I used to do all of it as one company, but some of us have 2 or even sometimes 3. So, this might be a moment to consolidate, I think. So there we go. So sole trader details. I'm a marriage neutral Ms. And first name, middle name, last name. let's go. I'm just going to go with the basic version of my name and the postcode. I'm currently between London and Barcelona. I still have my London address. So I'm going to basically input my London address because there we go. Because we're registering as if we are in England and we process the information in the UK. So, am I a public authority? Which what they say is, they give us a very nice, I really like this because they give us the legal basis of everything. So they tell us the public authority would be defined in the Freedom of Information Act from the year 2000, or a Scottish public authority under the Freedom of Information in Scotland Act 2002. I'm not a public authority. There's not anything, but I'm going to Google it nonetheless, just that we're certain. And this is any authority which has a legal mandate to govern, administrate a part or aspect of public life, such as all branches of the executive power of a state, province, municipality, etc. This is only Wikipedia, but I somehow doubt that that I, with my tiny language thing, would be classified as mandating anything to anyone. So then, how much will I need to pay? And they only use this information to work out the fee that I need to pay, and they will not publish it on the public register, which is very good. And they say, is your organization a charity or have exempt charitable status? Some companies are set up as charities, and this helps sometimes with, this is the best way to invest the money in the company, or to invest the money into something. And I, completely respect you if you do that. But my organization wasn't a charity. And then they say, does your organization have more than 249 staff? I'm going to go with resounding no. I was a one-man ship. So there we go. I doubt if any of you have 249 staff. Anyway, main contact details. This is again, as a sole trader, this is me. They ask for a job title. And this is the moment where, all sole traders scratch their heads, but I would put whatever job title you feel you have. If you are a business owner, you can put business owner. If you are a translator / interpreter, if you're a linguist, if you are a consultant, this is perfectly fine, because this is you have set up this title to describe who you are and what you do, and this is what you use. If you have a LinkedIn account, use what you put there, I think. I don't think that, anyone would mind. So I'm just going to go with the generic translator and then email. And then repeat the email. Apologies for that, but I do have to input those, or it will not let me to the next slide. They ask me if they can use my email address to send me ICO news and information relevant to me. So I'm personally going to go with yes, because I would like to receive those. Just a sec. There we go. They ask for a phone number, which I've given, and for address, which we can mark that to use the one that we gave as the main contact, which I have. The person completing this registration, we can use the details from the main contact details above, which is very good. It's a decent form, I have to say. Tell the customers how to contact you, which is optional. Provide details of who people should contact to ask for information, including information you might hold about them. And this is, very straightforward. If we're sole traders, we put down ourselves if we want to. But what I would for CEO purposes, for internet visibility, it might be a good idea to put yourself down there with your job title. Because what it does is, it asks for a job title, it asks for email and the email confirmation. I'm not going to put anything down there since I'm only mock registering. And we can use the address that has been given above if we are putting anything there. And I'm going to go with next. And then we can see the second part, the registration details, what gave us some polls, sector and nature of work, which is there are no languages. I'm sure everybody knows this because this has been a thorn in our sides for a long time. Somebody mentioned yesterday that being an Avon representative, you're there, you can put yourself down there, but if you're a translator, tough luck. So what was a consensus yesterday would be to go with other. But what I said, and what I'm going to say today as well, if you are a strict specialist, it's your decision, but there is a strong argument that to go with whatever you were specializing in. For example, when I used to translate, I specialized strictly in law for most of the time. So I think there would be an argument for me to mark legal because we don't have languages. So, and if you're medical, technically speaking, you are in medical field. You're not a doctor or a nurse, but you're translating it. So you still technically, your nature of work is medical or legal or technical or whatever specialization you have. If you have a couple of them, this might not work, however. So I'm going to go with other. And then, believe it or not, this is where you can find the Avon person, but this is where you won't find any linguists. So what you do have is you will be able to mark other, I think, self-employed consultant to a slimming world. Well, there we go. So we go with other. And then we have a very nice section. Hi, Lucy. It's lovely to have you. We're on the registration details, and we're working through the sector and nature of work, and we're now on other, and we can fill out this little form that's there that opens. We've done that yesterday, and we'll do it today. They have generated the details based on information that I've provided, and you can make any changes. And this is a little bit of a internet text file, and we can update with the information. So the first thing is the nature of work, which they've marked as general business. And the general business I was in, I would say linguistic services. For myself, a lot of people would say, any sort of language-related fields would be okay to enter. And if anyone has any questions again related to the matter at hand, then we're perfectly fine to answer them. So I'm going to go with the, translation and interpreting are good as well for me. So, and then the description of processing, which is, I'm going to read it out loud. The following is a broad description of the way this organization/data controller processes personal information. So, to understand how your own personal information is processed, you might need to refer to any personal communications you've received, check any privacy notices the organization has provided, or contact the organization to ask about your personal circumstances. So basically speaking, this is something where everybody has to write down what they do for themselves, and everybody does things in a little bit of a different way. But if we do have any questions, do ask them. And this is anything that we do it broadly. And there were many suggestions yesterday. There was a very good one in a way relating to translation services. I would personally maybe input a little bit of because I'm a fan of processes. I don't know if you knew, but I would put down my little process. The customer calls me, or the customer, there is a contact from the customer. They write me an email, because I would always ask them to write me an email, because the basis of written contract and so on and so forth. But also you do need to receive the information to check what what they're giving you to translate to be able to properly price it, and so on and so forth. So, you know, at this point we're obtaining the information, and I would just make a little brief note of the process. They said they're not looking for anything huge. It's just the way you do things, and everybody operates a little differently. So whatever you do, that's what we can put there. Then the next thing is the reasons/purposes for processing information. And we have a sentence that generated that reads, we process personal information to enable us to promote our goods and services, to maintain our accounts and records, and to support and manage our staff. And this is something that, again, we have to slightly change maybe. And I should, for myself, I think, and especially after yesterday, maybe I don't produce any goods, so I would remove goods from that note, and I would change we to I, because if I register as a sole trader, royal we doesn't sound too natural. So then, this is, I process personal information to enable me to promote my services. Some people again suggested related to translation / or interpreting and the linguistic thing, and whatever consultancy. If you work as a consultant, if you see yourself as, if you work as an editor, if you work as a teacher, you do have a leeway to sort of mark some other things as well. But in the end, this is about us being safe and secure in that we're sort of, what we're putting down is what we're doing. We don't have to be hugely detailed about this, but as long, you should feel honest within yourself. And as long as you do that, I mean, I said this again, but I don't think people are going to go to destroy, sole traders because somebody didn't put down goods and services, or they put down, goods and services twice. So in any case, this is, I process personal information to enable me to promote the services and to maintain my accounts and records, and also I should think to support and manage clients, because we do have to, I think we do have to mention that we process personal information of clients, and again, in relation to the translation work, to the interpreting work, I think this was a very nice way to phrase it, and I personally would go with it. If you have any other ways that you'd phrase it, you're welcome to put them down as well. So let's move to the type/classes of information processed. And this is, again, changing the royal we to I. I process information relevant to the below reasons and purposes. This may include, and we have 5 different things. Personal details, yes, if I have, personal data, again, even a business email. Then personal details stays. Family, lifestyle, and social circumstances. Not as a business. No, I wouldn't. Although as translators, there is a strong argument to leave it, because, for example, when I translate a divorce settlement and it would mention how many children and whom the children will be living with, then I'm definitely possessing of personal data relating to somebody's circumstances, family circumstances. This is how I see it. If you see it differently, let me know. So I'd leave the family and lifestyle and social circumstances. Financial details, well, technically speaking, if I'm invoicing people and if a person sends me their details, then I'm, definitely account. This is the other one. It's the one that was bothering me yesterday. She's going to bother us today as well. So let's go further. The next point is the employment and education details. And this is something interesting as well. This is something related to, well, are we translating people's documents? Are we translating people's, for Poland, matura exams, any sort of qualifications people might have? Technically speaking, we then possess that information. So there is, again, a very strong argument for leaving this. Also, there is goods and services provided, which I would just remove the goods for myself, as I didn't definitely produce any products. we did have a little bit of a chat about whether, let's say, a PDF that you make with a tutorial for somebody is a product or a service, but this is actually a debate in legal societies as well, in legal circles. So, you know, that I think if we were to write the products and consider them products, then, you know, I don't think we'd be in huge trouble. Also, the next sentence, I also process sensitive classes of information that may include physical or mental health details, which is if you translate medical and you have those, then there is a strong, you know, leaning to leave that in. And I used to translate a lot for criminal cases. Stop it. I used to translate a lot for criminal cases, and I'd have, you know, access to a lot of personal details and a lot of, you know, mental health history details of clients. So I would definitely, you know, consider myself as possessing of that very, very sensitive information. Then racial or ethnic origin. Well, are we translating people's documents? What are we from? Because I used to translate between, you know, Polish and English, and I from Polish to English, I not much. I'm going to say not much diversity in Poland, so I don't think I'd have people's very sensitive, you know, racial or ethnic origin, because we don't even have the mark on many of our forms. They don't ask us about the skin color because they, for example, because they assume our skin color. So, but then if we do translate something from English to Polish and we do the racial/ethnic origin question there on the form, then I think we do possess this information. Gabsiu, she wants a kiss. She's gonna blackmail me. Anyway, let's go further, and who the information is processed about. And I process personal information about my employees. I don't have it. So if I don't have it, I'm going to remove it. Customers and clients, then, well, yes, definitely. Suppliers and services providers. This is something, you know, if I, for example, if I have the opportunity to work on a large translation project and I was subcontracting some of it, again, not entering the, you know, the field of whether you know, we need to inform the client or not inform the client. This is generally just the data. So let's just, you know, this is going to be a service provider or a supplier, or maybe advisors, consultants, and other professional experts could be within this as well. Also, complainants and inquirers. So anybody has an inquiry or complaint and they you know, they contact you, then you do. So it ends up that I would leave 4 out of 5. And then we have the next section, which is who the information may be shared with. So basically, whom we share the information that we receive. So we sometimes, well, again, I sometimes need to share the personal information I process with the individual themselves. There we go. This is a form that has some mistakes in it, I have to say. But this is, you know, we're all linguists, we understand. And also with other organizations. So we basically, we share what we have with, you know, the customers that gave us the data, and with other organizations, which is, I would only share the information with the customer. But there is an argument that with, if you, for example, if you have an accountant, and if the accountant sees your invoices, you're sharing this with another, well, organization, with another person. Where this is necessary, I am required to comply with all aspects of the Data Protection Act, DPA. This, I wouldn't remove this one. This is definitely what is. And what follows is a description of the types of organizations I might need to share some of the personal information I process with for one or more reasons. So basically, they are giving us, and, you know, expect us to put down the list of organizations that we share the data with. And let's see this list to see the organizations. And the intro: when necessary or required, we share information with which is, I think, very important. Courts of law. Yes, they're going to mention it in a second, but yes, definitely. So again, the first, family, associates, and representatives of the person whose personal data we are processing. I wouldn't. But there is an argument again, and it's not a very strong one, but there is an argument, for example, let's say, God forbid, knock on wood, that there you go. Foolish is as foolish does. I knocked and now my doxy is barking. So, oh, Kirsten, no. Try to reload. I'll go back to you. Just hang around and I'll go back to you, okay? I'm just going to say something to my doxy because she's crying. Yams! There you go. She's very protective because she's a rescue too. Anyway, so if a person, God forbid, dies, your client, and then his legal representative gets back to you, give me back, the materials that you received from him, and what do you do? So this is something to be careful of, I think. But I don't know if I'd leave it. I might leave it, but I definitely, because I'm very sort of focused on not sharing things with third parties, and I'm very protective of everybody who writes me, who gets in touch with me in any capacity, in personal life as well. I would never give somebody, somebody's email to an organization or somebody else unless explicitly asked to do so by the person, which is, their information, their decision. But I wouldn't, if you came to me and asked me, could you give me the email of my associate because I lost it, I'd call the associate if I had his number before doing anything about it. So I might leave it, just to be absolutely certain I'm not doing something I'm not saying, but I would definitely make a point of when necessary or required, I would add something, they would have to go at me legally. I'd have to see that there is a statutory, there is a, precedent for this, they're forcing me to do it. And, this is in the customer's best interest, or this is in the country, the government's best interest. So, that then yes. So next, employment and recruitment agencies. Well, not I shouldn't think so. Again, I wouldn't share the details with, I think this is generally quite easy for us sole traders, if we look at it this way, because, I don't think many of us, would go out and sell data and share data with, shady businesses or people, or, do anything like that. So the employment and recruitment agencies, I would remove. But sometimes there were some people yesterday with us that preferred to leave it in. So we might want to either refer to yesterday's discussion about it, which is also in the chat, or or there is nothing wrong with removing it or leaving it, in my opinion, as long as this is what you're doing with the data. So current, past, and prospective employers, I would never share the detail of somebody with an and I was a freelancer anyway, so I wouldn't, and I don't think any of us would. But so I wouldn't. So then we have educators and examining bodies. Well, if it was required of me and I was asked to, I don't see it. They'd have to again come at me legally, and I don't see their point. Central government, yes. If central government asks me for somebody's details and they point out to a statute, I'm going to give them the details. It's true. I'm going to leave it. Credit reference agencies. I wouldn't. Again, anything financial is even more sacred than anything else. And this is something that, credit reference agencies, I don't know if they can come to a translator and ask them to see their invoicing. But if they can, better they told us, better they give me the legal basis on that. I think this would be very good to give a disclaimer. I always do to I always used to my customers from before, and to the customers of my little company that I have now. I'd say, look, I'm not going to share any data unless I'm required to do so. And there has to be a legal basis, because accountants also has legal basis, because we do have to, maintain the accounts, or we are liable before the tax authority. So that, in my opinion, again, courts of law, yes. I wouldn't, if you want to put it out instead of central government, I think there is administrative law as well. I'd think about it, because mostly I wouldn't mind putting courts of law next to the central government, but the government does have administrative powers as well, because that's the administrative branch, and they can impose fines, and this isn't necessarily criminal proceedings, and this isn't necessarily court proceedings. So I personally would definitely go with the central government. And the central government, we went over it yesterday, so I might, but we'll go over it today again. This is central. I found a little link to central government website, which is basically by gov.uk. And what it does is it's opening very slowly. But what it does is it names all the branches of the central government, which is, again, as interpreted by the government. So, and somebody asked if the tax authority is there, and the tax authority is indeed there. I'm actually going to link this website so you can see for yourselves, if you want, in the chat. This is a government website, so it's perfectly safe. I would never link anything, remotely unsafe to anybody. Okay, so yeah, Kirsten, are you satisfied with the discussion about the courts of law versus central government? No need to say anything, but I'd like to make sure that we're all on track to move forward. And we have the debt collection and tracing agencies, which somebody mentioned yesterday that we might leave that in if we want to, if at any point we expect to be not paid, and do something about it, which is, I would leave it in. And financial organizations, which is, again, is my accountant a financial organization? Is my bank a financial organization? Definitely. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kirsten. If you're in a pickle, write me an email. I'll try to help you over there. So I'll just write it down so she knows, in case she doesn't hear it. There we go. This also is for every one of you. If you can't hear me, if there's something that, you feel for any reason, unsafe to discuss, so publicly, do write me an email. I'll do what I can to answer as soon as I can. So then there we go. Financial organizations. If we operate through a bank, I think we are giving personal details to financial organizations. So I'd leave it in. And then there are additional reasons we can submit it, which I'm going to click, and it just saves it. And additional reasons. Please select below if you process data for any of the following reasons, if not already included above. And we have 5. The first, Trading and sharing personal information. Well, no. Providing financial services and advice. Well, my business wouldn't. I not a financial advisor. I wasn't, and I'm not now. Undertaking research. Sometimes some people do research for their customers. As a legal translator, I wasn't really required to do so, but if you classify yourself again as a consultant, if this is an important part of what you do, if this is in fact a part of what you do, and this is what you're getting paid for, and this is how you process the data, if they're asking you to do a little research, or you tell them, look, I have to do a little research, then I think there might be a reason to mark that, especially that I haven't really seen any research mentioned in the paragraph above. I'm sorry. So then we go with, if I mark undertaking research, it deletes all others. So yeah, if we undertake research, or if we do consulting and advisory services, which is also very important, or CCTV for crime prevention, as mentioned above. So there we go. I think I would put down undertaking research because just to be certain, because if I was asked to provide some research, I do have, I would do it. So I would do it. So it didn't happen in the past, but I would do it in the future. So in the future past, because now I don't do it anymore. Anyway, this is a complicated thing. So undertaking research, we're moving on. Transferring information overseas, and a very important one in my opinion, and it's asking us, do you transfer data outside the European Economic Area? And I would. And I would mark it because I would work with customers from US, and US is outside this area. So if I work with them, and if I have a customer in, let's say, in London, yes, it did happen. I did, I did translate some documents for people who lived in London, and they communicated with their Polish relatives in the States, and they wanted the legal correspondence translated, and I've done so. So there we go. I would. There is a lot of misconception about this one, because people think this is, people often think that this means European Union. This doesn't. So do make sure that you mark yes if you have any clients, or if you plan on having any clients, or you think you take work from clients that are outside from European Economic Area. And do remember that the registrations, they can be updated, they can be edited. You'd have to phone in with that, but they can be updated. So if you're being honest, then nothing to worry about. So I do, so I mark yes. And does this cover all your processing of personal information? And there is a declaration, which is yes, this covers all my processing of personal information. I think, again, personally, for my little language business of the past, I was very generous with what I've put down, so I should think so, yes. So we're going next, and we're in the other obligations. We just have a couple of questions that we have to answer, and a little introductory text which I'll read. So, as well as the obligation to register, the law requires organizations to comply with other rules about the information they process. Please tell us about how you meet your obligations under the DPA by responding to the following statements. We will not publish this information on the public register, but may contact you on the basis of the responses you give. So let's go through them, shall we? The first, someone in my place of work is responsible for making sure we comply with the Data Protection Act, which is, for a sole trader, it's me. I'm responsible. And I think maybe you should be responsible too. If you are a one-man ship, I think, we all know the drill. We do the editing, we do the invoicing with the accountant, with everybody. We're the data protection officer as well from now on until the end of time. So there we go. Relevant people, the next question. Relevant people in my place of work have been trained in how to handle personal information, which is relevant people is I. as a sole trader, and I consider myself trained, I think. I mean, I went through the documents, and this is a good moment to reflect, because this is something that is very good to be able to prove. So if you've been at the GDPR webinar, this is a very good, if you have a proof of that, this is a very good thing to note down. And this is one of the things that you can say that you've done, not necessarily, very high detail, expert advice and whatnot, but this is showing that you're being proactive about this and that you're treating it seriously. And this is, what most people would expect from us, not being, huge legal nerds and, having all that very complex information down pat, or even, be able to solve confusion that experts can't solve. It's just being, honest and trying to be good about what we do, which is, collecting and storing personal information as well. So I'd say I was trained. If you don't feel trained, I've shared some material in the last yesterday, in the last session, a training material that ICO published themselves. But let me just see if I can find it again quickly. There we go. We have resources and support, training videos. There is a data protection self-assessment toolkit. There is the getting ready for the GDPR resources. There are, which I'm a big fan of, posters, stickers, and e-learning, which is basically infographics. Posters are infographics. So if you're a visual learner, if this is how you prefer to learn, they can be very, very good to have. What I do, and what I do actually, this is something, I'd have a little folder which says basically, GDPR training, and proves that you have done some work training yourself and preparing yourself for the GDPR. And I'd have, I'd download some of those. There is a Think, Check, Share toolkit, and there is it's even in the Welsh language, and it's a very nice PDF document, which is, which gives you all the information in a very, very easy way. So this might be worth saving and keeping in a folder and just, maybe going through it once or twice. It's really quite good, if I can say so myself. So I'd say relevant people have been trained. Next question. When collecting personal information, we tell people how we use it. Again, royal we, but what can you do? You can't edit. So yes, I would mark yes, and this is the moment to reflect. Do I tell people? If I don't tell people, I have to start telling people now, because I can't mark yes if I don't. So this is something that, you'd have to put, this is something that works as a email signature. I know some people don't like it, but it's a good place for it, in my opinion. I have it in my business email, and this is something that could help you stretch your copywriting wings, because you don't have to put legalese there. You can be very, forthcoming. You can use plain English. You can be, you can promote your business using language, which we all know something about it. This is something that connects us. So you can always say, I won't share your personal data with this and this. So I used to have a disclaimer that went something like, I promise not to share your personal data unless, there is a legal basis to do so. And this was what I was using. So you are perfectly able to Google any templates, examples that people use, and build yourself one however you want. And this is something that you know how to do, because you're a linguist. And I think this is our advantage with these forms. We do operate with the languages. So again, the next, for me, yes. And then the next question is, we have a process in place so we can respond to requests for the personal information we hold. Again, sole traders, I don't know if many of us write down processes, or, I'm maybe slightly insane this way, but I did have, you know, a folder of written down processes for my little little company then. I still keep it. I still keep my folders with processes and I still write them down, but my operations became a little bigger, you know, with time. I can see, Trevor, I can't see one message from you which is asking if the message arrived. So if there was another message, it didn't. We are on live chat though, so everything should be visible. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Let me see if I can. Yeah. But it arrived literally when I read it. So if for any reason the chat seems not to be working for you, I am available on email. Oh, Trevor, you poor thing. I'm so sorry. Again, when we're over with this, we can turn back to anything that you wanted to say, or you can just say it, and I would, you know, refer to it. But I guess no platform is without its problems. So, shall we move on? We have a process in place so we can respond to requests. Have you? Oh, I'm sorry. This is if it was during the last 2 days and it was the formal address, the inbox that I had with CIOL, I'm not necessarily seen it, but I will definitely, once this chat is over, I'm going to take a look and we're going to go through it because, you know, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving anyone stranded with this. So let's get back to the having process in place. This is basically what I would say could be a good idea, is just to put down a little bit of a process for yourself, even if it's a little bit, you know, even if it's a Word document, for example, client asks, I give, you know, this is something, again, that would prove that you're being serious about it and you're being prepared. And obviously that would be, you know, the contact and the answer, and, you know, you wouldn't give the contact details or any personal data to somebody who, you know, doesn't have the right to them. So there you go, we have a process in place. And then the next, we keep records of people's personal information up to date and don't keep it longer than necessary, which is yes. And if you have the data retention schedule, then you know, this is basically necessary is basically defined as you define it. And if you can make, Trevor, this, I'm sorry, this chat does assume everybody's a sole trader because I asked at the beginning and nobody said anything. Okay. So look, what I'm going to do, because we're literally at the end of the registration as the sole trader, we'll go back to it and I'm going to look at you, okay? We're going to take a look at, you know, the organizations you can register as and so on and so forth. I'm really sorry. I can't check email while doing this. I was checking the email, but the wrong one apparently. Anyway. So if you do have the, you know, the data retention, if you watch the GDPR webinar, basically there is a data retention thing. Give me a moment. Let me just. There is a very nice PDF which I'm looking for. ICO has a retention schedule. Granted, it's from 2015, but this is something that they publish for themselves, and I'm just checking if it's copyrighted, because if it is copyrighted, I might not be able to link it, because again, it's a public place, but it doesn't have any markings of being copyrighted. I think it's public knowledge. And I didn't use any of my researching magic to find it. I just, you know, I was very, very straightforward about it. No, I do understand, Trevor. I understand it perfectly. Believe me, I don't blame you, and I understand your frustration. But it's something I wasn't aware of as well. So I've linked the data retention schedule. Again, it's old, but it has a very nice document control template in it, which I think we can take a look at, with version date amended by and comments. And this is the document control. This is basically for the document, but we can use it for the data retention document. So we're certain when we change it and which version we are on. Anyway, let's see. Let's take a look at so we are at the last one. We have measures in place to keep the personal data we hold safe and secure, which is basically, again, you have to, answer yourself the following question: do I keep my data safe and secure? What does it mean for me? When I feel comfortable with, processing people's data, is it secure? Some people like their emails to be encrypted, some don't. I didn't used to encrypt my email. I don't encrypt my sort of, the old email. I never used to encrypt it. So, but again, I do keep my data under lock and key. So I also keep any external drives under lock and key as well. So I am being secure. And I don't think that for a sole trader, again, I'm very sorry, Trevor, but when I find out what the issue is, we can address it. But I think if we are one man shop, then we're definitely not. We don't have to. This isn't very complicated. This is basically us making sure that the data is secure. So not using platforms maybe which are unsafe to keep the data. For example, this is something when if you work with Dropbox, I definitely have something. They have a guidance center, and they also do some. They've done some work with GDPR. I use Dropbox, so this is something that I'm interested in. And if you use any email aggregates like MailChimp or others, then you'd have to take a look at this as well. Basically speaking, this is something, for me, I feel secure when the platform is taking steps and I see the steps and I see that they're not just letting the data hang around. This is something, that we've, with ECPD, actually, we did some extra work. We have, a firewall that is bespoke and so on and so forth. And this is, in a little bit of a document somewhere. And if anybody asks, this document is ready and can be presented to them. So, so you might want to do something like that for yourself, whether you are a sole trader or an organization, because this is something, you might want to do. So we do have the measures in place, and then that's just a confirmation. We're done. We can edit, we can go back to the sections, and then we do have to declare and proceed to payment, which is £35. And the platform, as they said, it doesn't work for everybody. But what I would advise everybody to do, which is, with my tiny little bit of a legal background, keep copies of everything. If you can't print, do screenshots and keep them secure, because again, this is, sensitive data, your sensitive data. So in this instance, so I'd say we've safely braved the registration, and we can get into the conversation about anybody who needs anything else solved. So Trevor, I see that some people have issues with getting into the live chat. I have absolutely no idea why. I made extra sure to be extra inclusive, and this is what we have to deal with. Again, I'm going to put my email down there. They're both, which is the safest way to get through to me. Let me just double check if I'm giving you the correct one. And you know, if you weren't able to operate the live chat, which I'm very sorry about and have absolutely no idea why would that happen, as we didn't have this issue yesterday, and everybody spoke up and we had a nice discussion, then please write me on this address, because the CAOL box is a little can get crowded with system queries as well. So this is the best way in any case. So since we're ready with since we've done the registration, and we did focus on sole traders, I did mention sole traders a lot, and I did register as a sole trader. What should we focus on? What do we do now? What do we need? What answers do we need? What part of the registration should we go over? Because most things, I think, I'll just try to take a look at the beginning with organizations. And I can get in, and we have partnerships and limited companies and limited liability partnerships, basically anything that we'd like. Public bodies, charities, others like clubs, societies, voluntary organization, which I used to preside over voluntary organization when I was 16. So, and I'm not sure if oh, I see. I did get some emails. Oh, I see. Trevor, I got your emails. I just didn't understand that's what they are. It's asking you to create a Gmail account, basically, because you can't join the live chat. You can only watch, which you've done. So this was what it is. It was in the little instruction document that I shared on Saturday. But I'm really sorry. You should have gotten it. You were on my list, but yeah. This is in the access tutorial. And I am really sorry about it. So what should we do? What can we do? What do we do if we're not a sole person? What do we do if we are a limited company? Because I think this is the only thing that we can be if we are, a simple linguist. Let's say, I think most of these would still apply, believe it or not, but we'll see. We'll take a look at the differences, okay? So if we're a limited company, I'm going to market. Oh, fantastic. So let's go with the limited company. So we're a limited company, and they want the company name, which is, for me, let's say organize, because this is what I am. This is my little company. This is, And then they want a company registration number, which is, your company registration number should go there. And I don't have it on me, but let me see. Okay, we can. So what I'm going to do is, if you write in your company registration number, it's going to get your details from Companies House, and then you'd be able to basically have your address and all the names there. Since I don't have my number on hand, I just inputted what I think my number is, and they, and I have to just input my address manually, which I'll do, because again, this is just a mock registration. I've registered already, so as a company, but building name and number. There we go. So if you have any other trading names, it's asking us for a trading name. And this is, let me just check quickly, because I've registered quite a bit of time ago, and So there you go. You have the legal name and you have the business name. And the trading name, this is basically a pseudonym. This is something that if you operate, let's say, there is a trend in some countries, let's say, to make a company with your given name and then operate as a trade name as something else, or vice versa. If I operated as, Karolina Kaczmarek-Giel, and my legal name is Organize, I'd put it in my trade name, my personal name. I don't think I have to do it, and I haven't done it before. So the next question is the same. Am I a public authority? Which nobody would want me there. So if anybody has any questions, drop them by. How much will I need to pay? And again, we're not a charity and have no exempt status. I don't have 249 or more staff. I don't even have one staff. Main contact details, so this is the same. And this is the details of the person who is responsible for data protection in your organization. If you're a limited company and it's just you, it's still you. So, I'm going to go with myself, job title, which is, whatever we discussed before applies. Business operations manager, business owner, consultant, translator, interpreter, linguist, legal linguist, which was my tagline, and email, which I'm going to give them this email, and then, use my email address to send me ICO news. I do like to be educated when it comes to the law. We can do the same thing with the phone. If you have a business phone, this would be the place to put the business phone. If you have if you're being more formal, if you're operating as a limited company, if you have, if you do have, employees, if you do have suppliers, if you have all that shebang, you're perfectly within your rights to put your business telephone number. You don't have to give your private one. You're registering as a company in the company name, which is something, and use the address I gave above, and then there are details for a person completing this registration. So what they want is, if the person from the company, because this is a bigger, yes, there are no options for linguists. Nobody gets them. We're shafted, sorry to say. So as I said, if you specialize, then you have a strong argument to go with the specialization. If not, we have to enter things manually. And I think, this is might not be necessarily fair, but I don't know if it's unfair either, because this is sort of, the burden seems to be on us to describe, but at the same time, they can't expect us to have the knowledge of, of the legislative. Not doable. So yes, but since there are no options for linguists, we go with the general options. It's a form. They've done the form. If they have done the mistake, this is on them, not on us. So I'm the person completing the registration, and if you're not the business owner, mention it. Yes, this is something that is a very close thing to many translators, isn't it? I used to operate more as a linguist, because I taught a little bit of plain legal English as well. But if if a part of what you do, if a part of your company is persuading clients ask your opinion, if you consult on cultures, you're a consultant. Yeah, it's you have an argument. So this is basically what it is. We're putting down what we feel the best with, because there isn't anything that we can put down that's unquestionable. You can't, nobody can dismantle your argument that you're not a consultant, because you can't tell them, well, there was no option for a linguist, there was no option for a translator, so I'm not, I'm using what's closest. So yeah, definitely. It's a good thing, to lodge a little bit of a maybe I wouldn't say complaint, but maybe a little note, like, linguists not covered. But I know some people have done that already, so ICO must be aware of the issue, and if they want that settled, they'd have to improve the form, and then it's not on us, it's on them. So the burden of responsibility is with them because they've given us the form. Again, personal, my personal thing, but it would be absolutely unreasonable to think anything else, and they might be, if they tried anything, they'd go. And this is why you never listen to helplines, because this is, again, I'm a lawyer's daughter. Okay, I was raised in a legal company, a very small one, in a small town. My father, he still is an excellent lawyer in Poland, and I, as a small child, I used to sit below his desk and listen to his conversations with clients. I make no claim. Yes, ICO helpline. Yes, and I wouldn't listen to them. And again, it's a friend's advice, but a friend's advice is, it's a friend who has a father as a lawyer and was a legal linguist at one point. If you don't have it in writing, you cannot use it in court. So if somebody says, let's say I make a call to the helpline, and a nice chap named Kevin tells me, oh no, Carolina, I don't have to register, then my question would be, well, okay, Kevin, no problems. What's your name? Full name? What's your title? Can I quote you? Is your advice formal advice? Because if it's informal advice, then you're still on your own, you understand? And that's the issue, because a lot of people think that, and people working in helplines are people. And sometimes, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be disparaging, and I do admire that, that we're trying to do something with data protection, but I just don't think that a random person on a helpline is something that I'm going to build my arguments on. Because what am I going to say if somebody asks me, oh, I called the helpline? Well, do they record all the conversations? Are we certain of it? Can we find it? Can we get a copy of this conversation when I'm being told this? And I am told by Robin that, this is something that ICO does quite a bit. They tell people that it's their decision to register. And this basically puts the responsibility on us, the people who have to register, or not, as you want to interpret. But this is something that, this is the main reason why we're having these. Because if it were so easy, then, it would be already done. So I personally think, and it's my personal opinion again, that as a linguist, for my little thing, if it was a limited company regardless, or a sole trader, I operate with personal data, I'd prefer to register. If they say it's your decision to do so, it's my decision to do so. If you decide not to register, what I would very strongly advise you to do is, as with everything, build an argument. And have as many people, by name and surname as possible. Go to an expert, have them sign, their advice. If you think your situation is very, oh, there you go. So, this is my opinion, and I prefer being safe. I'm a stickler for it. I'm, horrible. I'm a horrible person. There we go. So, person completing this registration, we can move forward. This is me. If it's somebody else from the business owner, then I think this is the moment to put that down. But I'm not sure if we have such a big companies that we'd have somebody else registering for us. Again, the same section as we discussed, telling customers how to contact us, which we don't have to. And if this is an advice of a friend, if you like to be visible online, it's nice to be visible online. And this is a good thing, I think, if you want that. So So let's go next. And we are in registration details. And we have the same things. And we can have a little bit of a more, let's see, will writer, my God, youth offending team, traffic commissioner, taxi driver, surveyor, security company provider. In any case, Capita is there actually. Scheme actuary, Capita. In any case, what I do see there is only other. And those of us who have consultancy, especially if you do have a website or any formal presence anywhere, leaflets, a statement of mission and vision. If you have it in services that you offer consultations, then you can go with consultant. You don't have to go into others and into the translator and whatever. It's as long as you do, when you are prompted, you do give all the ways that you manage the data, then, nobody can, destroy your argument, or you should go into other, because you say, well, I consider myself a consultant on languages, and you're not being unethical. So, are we okay at this point? Can we move forward, or are we discussing it? Which I'm not against. Give me half a chance and I'll talk all your ears off. So, but I personally, if I was a limited company in my sole trading days, I'd still go with other and translation/interpreting, because I didn't necessarily consider myself a consultant type of a person. So, but I think that's business that's just business sense. You know best what your business is. So if your business is, consulting cultures, if you consult, they can't tell you don't. And this is, if the consultant is closest, go with consultant. You're not being, you're the actual job as in a translator, let's say, because if there was a title translator, maybe we could have like a nice discussion about it, or academical, I guess. Is there an argument when there is an option translator to put consultant? But in the end, it boils down to the fact that there isn't an option. Language expert, language consultant, even language person, so linguist. So consultant is fine. What I'm going to do is, Trevor, because I think that this is something that you are going to go with, I'm going to actually change and put the consultant down there. And this is, we still have, they've changed things. They've changed the details about the information you process. So we can go over it again for the consultants. Would that be okay? I'm assuming it would be okay. And, if anybody is, because, I'm a little bit of a juggernaut when it comes to talking, but if you're tired, I'm not forcing you to stay. I don't want to sound horrible. You're welcome. But, a good thing about YouTube, this, I'm going to keep it as a recording for at least a couple of days, and you can, pause and go wherever you want, and this chat is recorded as well. So let's go. Description of processing, which is, just check that quickly. This is, the introduction is exactly the same as it was, so I'm not going to go through it again. The reasons, okay. The reasons and purposes for processing information, this slightly changed. And obviously the nature of work is consultant, not general business. You might want to put any of your, if you're a linguistic consultant, for example, anything, language related, you might want to put it there just to be extra precise, which, law likes precision. But I don't think that, again, that anyone's going to destroy you if you stay with a consultant. And we process personal information to enable us to provide consultancy and advisory services, to promote our services, to maintain our own accounts and records, and to support and manage our employees. Very nice. This one I like. It's the general business one that is wonky. I think I like this one. There is a very good argument to, it wasn't, general business wasn't an option. If you go other and then other, and it tells you to edit, then you get the general business. So it's a hidden option. And I wouldn't go with general business. I think it might be maybe a little too general, but it still depends on your company, because I'm not, I'm not going to pry, but if if I'm sort of generally assuming we're all linguists, but if your company does things besides, for example, marketing, then I'd mention it, because it's they are asking us to give quite a detailed view. So I would definitely mention something, about the nature of the business. They're not publishing it anywhere, so I think we're fine to give it to them. But again, this is a personal opinion of a person that enjoys filling out forms, I guess. So yeah, I would add something about for example, in relation to languages or linguistic consultancy services, or anything to sort of maybe narrow it down a little bit. But I know people who have general IT services, and they have registered as IT services, and then if you put more general thing at the beginning, then you're going to have to write a little bit more in the specifics, I believe, because we are going to be asked the same thing in a minute, which is types and classes of information processed, which are basically the same. They even mentioned goods and services when they deleted them before. And this is going to be, Trevor, the same. This is going to be the same as we went over for the sole traders, which I've mentioned, but with the proviso that this is something that we're doing as a limited company. Then if we have employees, then we definitely have to mention it. So personal details, do we, if I was a limited company, I'd still process those. Family lifestyle, social circumstances. Again, if you translate for anything like that, then again, legal documents, the divorce settlement that I described, the legal field is such that sometimes you get to translate medical data for people when you have insurance claims and documents like those. So I wouldn't feel safe excluding those, but it really strongly depends on what kind of business you run, and provided it's a linguistic business, let's say, what kind of documents, what kind of work you actually do within the business. But if, let's say, I'm going to go with a very broad thing, if you do, let's say, a boutique agency that doesn't have a very strongly defined niche, or niches, let's say, more sort of related to the types of languages than to the fields of business or fields of interest, then I'd definitely leave it, because if you're not going to say I translate medical and technical, then I'm not going to translate a legal thing. Basically, let's put down on what we do. So then, business activities of the person whose personal information we are processing. Oh, I don't think we had this one before. Business activities of the person. Okay. Yeah, because that would be for consultants. And now it depends. If we are consultants, linguistic consultants, do we find out about people's business? Do we get these details of people's businesses? Because if we do, and there are some people, there are some companies who, for example, help market products and translate everything related to them and bring products into the market, then if you consult on these, then you'd have to leave it, I think, because that would describe. But if you're just doing intercultural consultancy and you're not really privy to any business details from your clients, then I don't think it's necessary to leave it. Again, goods and services provided, I delete the goods, because unless you do provide the goods, then I write them in the reasons and purposes. So services provided, financial details, as we said, if you invoice, you do. Education details, if you translate any education/employment details, I definitely leave it in. For myself, employment details, if you employ anybody, that's good to leave it. Also, if you provide consultancy to people who are employed and you get those employment details, like, for example, if you at any point give any career advice as a part of your work. Because sometimes I think this is why there isn't an option linguist, because they didn't know what to put down. I think that it's just because we as linguists, we do everything. We do career advice, we do everything. I haven't met two linguists that perform the exact same job. And I don't think you have either. You're welcome to challenge me on this. So, we can go further to, we also process sensitive classes of information that may include physical or mental health details, offenses and alleged offenses, racial and or ethnic origin, religious or other beliefs of a similar nature. So yeah, we have physical or mental. Oh, yes. Yes, you're not confused at all. You're actually being on point. Yes. We have to say what we do in reality. Yes. And what I would add to it is basically, or if you're doing something in theory and not doing it in practice. For example, if you have a consultancy, but you haven't, let's say, you want to give career advice and this is a part of your company, but you haven't had any people who wanted career advice yet. Or for example, you technically translate some type of a document, but you haven't had any requests for it, but I'd put it down. But yeah, this is basically, just what you do. Yeah, this is what we do. What are you doing here, Katka? Yes, I know. Evening hugs. Goodbye. So, yeah. And this is the reason why it might be confusing, is because there's a lot of that to put down. Yeah. What I would advise to those of us who may be, really tired with this, to separate it into chunks. That's what I've done, because filling out these forms can be very stressful, and it is always, to me, when I do it for myself, it's easy, to do a mock one, but if you have to put down and you have to sign it, it's a different thing, isn't it? So, you can write me and you can ask me and we can have this little conversation, once or twice over email as well. But yeah, this is basically, if you do it, you put it down. They suggest to you what you do and you sort of amend it. And that's all there is to it. There's nothing more that needs to be done to this form. So basically speaking, physical or mental health. Do you translate medical documents? Do you translate legal documents that can contain some mental health issues? Offenses and alleged offenses. Do you translate legal documents? Do you, at any point, do you interpret at courts? Are you going to interpret? Are you a generalist in your company? Religious or other beliefs of a similar nature. Do you translate forms? Do you translate, would you translate a form for a person? Is this your business? If it is your business, then yeah. And this is who the information is processed about, which is shorter than it was before. And it goes, we process personal information about our customers, clients, and employees, complainants and inquirers, suppliers, advisors, and other professional experts, which is, for a consultant, fair enough. If you have any employees, yeah. If you don't, I'd remove it. Complainants and inquirers, definitely. If I write to you with an inquiry, then, I'm an inquirer, I'm not a client. Basically, anybody who's not your client is an inquirer. If I ask you for a price and you give me the price that I think, is too high and I go away, I am an inquirer. If I say you are giving me too high of a price, then I'm a complainer. A horrible person, basically. But, you know how it is. Professional experts. Do you get professional advice? I used to. When I translated legal documents and I was, unsure of anything, I would ask a lawyer. I would ask a lawyer friend. But I would ask the lawyer. I would, you know, troll the fora, and I check things. So, you know, if you use this sort of a thing, I think it's safest to leave it. You know, it's you know, the more detailed, the safer you are, basically, in my opinion, at least. So, and then we have the information, the last part, you know, the last part of it, who the information may be shared with. And this is, you know, about the people and the organizations. And this is the same as it was. Yes, it's the same as it was for the sole traders, so we can leave it. But it's basically, you know, the DPA, the Data Protection Act, and this is the intro that I would again advise, maybe, if you like, to put down a little bit of a disclaimer. It depends how you share the data. What can help, if for those of us who find it challenging, is basically to put down a little bit of a, you know, of notes. Put down some notes. What do I do? What does the company do? What do we do with the information? And just use this as a guideline, and then just to, you know, edit and input whatever, you know, whatever is the best version of the, you know, the best version of the notes. Because, you know, I don't think that, again, people are going to go after us and try to slap us with a fine only because we might have been confused about one word. Because that wouldn't be very that wouldn't be a public service then, you know. And I don't think there's much confusion. I think ICO is going to improve over the next couple of months, and we are going to observe it, and we are going to, you know, whenever, you know, they issue, I am subscribed to them, so I do get their information. So whenever they issue anything and they tell us to do something, we can then do it. Goodbye, cat. So there we go. We can go through this little list. When necessary or required, we share information with. And this is, again, do you give the information to third parties? Do you trade the information in any way, shape, or form? Because for a limited companies, you know, it might be maybe slightly different, but, you know, your company is yours. This is basically the reflection of reality. So the business associates and other professional advisors. Depends on the company, right? If we are a consultancy, and if, for example, we take another person to the project, if we take a professional advisor and we give them the personal data, we'd have to say it. She has a horrible cry, doesn't she? Anyway, so then family, associates, and representatives of the person whose personal data we are processing. We went over this, you know, in the sole trader thing, and this is just the same thing. It's the same thing. You have to basically go through it, and, you know, would I give the personal data to, you know, a client's family if they came and said, you know, share it. I, you know, again, they'd have to slap me with a bill, but no, I wouldn't. I'd have to be legally obligated to do it. Or, you know, I can't imagine a scenario. You're welcome to imagine a scenario and throw it at me, but I literally cannot imagine a scenario. But, you know, this isn't, not all businesses are the same. I'm talking as a person who dealt with legal translation. But if you, for example, you're doing something relating to psychology or medicine, then, you know, or chemistry, then your situation might be different. And you might have, let's say, a moral or ethical dilemma over this. And you're welcome to you know, to tell me about your dilemmas and to write me about your dilemmas. And if something lands in my private inbox and in my business inbox, then, you know, I'm not going to share it. So, you know, financial organizations, then I'd again say, if you invoice customers, yes. Current, past, or prospective employers. This is becoming interesting if you have employees, because if they change a job, would you give them references? You know, or would you, you know, because then if you would, well, they would ask you to provide the details, but sometimes people would contact you without agreement. It's not the most legal thing to do, but this is what they do. Would you give it? You know, educators and examining bodies. What kind of of company do you run? What kind of services? This is basically what it boils down to. What kind of services do you provide for people? Is there any point in time where you'd have to share information with educators and examining bodies? If you're asked, for example, if you translate people's certificates, or then if you do a certified translation, would you share it with the examining body if they request it? Again, they'd have to have legal grounds for it, and I personally, I've done, and I would do it again, very clearly mention that I don't share anything unless legally required, or I have a permission from the person, whose data it belongs to, because it's their data, I'm just holding it. So, but this is basically your company. And suppliers and service providers, which is, again, for limited companies, you might have more suppliers, you can have service providers, you might be a boutique agency, you might be, an operation of more than one person. And if you are, then, the number of, basically the amount of data and the way you share it is there's just more of it. And then we can go traders in personal data. This is something we haven't had there. Traders in personal data, which is, would you give personal data to a trader of this data? If you would, there you go. If you wouldn't, don't include it. I wouldn't include it. And but again, that's me. Additional reasons. Give me a moment, let me, there are the same: trading and sharing personal information, providing financial services and advice, undertaking research, consulting and advisory services. And if you're a consultant, responding to the last question, if you've never worked for a direct, this was something that I discussed at the beginning. It's technically speaking, if you only work for agencies, it still counts as personal data if anyone can be identified by it. So yes, it becomes simpler, I suppose, because you have less data. So actually safeguarding it might be easier. Actually, the recording, it might be easier. But yes, if you share it with the agency, it does become easier, in my eyes at least, yeah. And if you never will, work with a direct client, then you're not going to have many complainers. Or at least you're going to have only complainers that you know and can discuss things with. But yeah, definitely sharing of the data, I suppose, and you share the responsibility at the same time. What I would maybe suggest gently, if I worked with agencies mostly, I would make sure that I know if the agency is registered with the ICO, and I would have their number, and I would keep it on the record, just to make certain that I know where the data goes, and that people that operate with this data, they are also trained and they are aware of the situation, because just to preserve my personal professional reputation, right? And this is, I think it's just good practice. I don't think anybody forces us to do it, but it might be a good idea. So, for consultants, consulting and advisory services, this is what we do. So information is processed for consultancy and advisory services that are offered. And it might include name, contact details, family details, financial details, and the goods and services providers. That's a very into the goods and services thing. This information might be about customers and clients. When necessary, this information is shared with the data subject themselves, business associates, and other professional advisors, current, past, or prospective employers and service providers. We technically included this above, I think, but I'd still mark it, unless you do a lot of research. Then I'd mark the research. But if you are consulting, then I'd mark the consulting, just in case we didn't include goods above, and they included goods there. Sorry, losing my voice. So, cut her. Pardon me. Let me just, and the wipe. There we go. Anyway, so next, transferring information overseas. Literally the same thing. Clients from outside of the European Economic Area means transferring information outside the economic area. Because if at any point you send out your translation, your quote, your anything back to the client, you're transferring the data outside. Then does this cover all your, basically the signature, does this cover all your processing of personal information? If you do something significant with the information that you haven't mentioned, it might be worth to go back and put it down. And I'm going to go next, and we are on the other obligations, which are exactly the same. And I went through it, and some things might maybe slightly change. Well, you know, Apshu, I'm sorry, she thinks she's my daughter. She's a rescue, so she's very, I'm going to say, unhealthily attached. Anyway, so we have the questions, and let's just quickly go through them so we can, get some rest. So, someone in my place of work is responsible for making sure we comply with the Data Protection Act. If you have an employee that's responsible for that, it's good. You have to. Please have somebody, and don't mark yes if you don't. But if you mark no, then they're going to contact you probably to make sure you do. So let's make sure we do have a person that's prepared. And then again, do we have relevant people in my place of work that have been trained? And that would concern everybody that deals with the data. Everybody that can give out the data, basically, if you have an employee and the person has the access to the data and they can give it out, it's best to have them, comply, and it's best to have them go away, sweetie. And it's best to have them trained. And I have shared some links above. And what I would advise, common sense to people who do have employees. Look into having a form for them to sign that they have been trained. Have as much paper trail as you can in anything, basically. If you train somebody, have them sign it off. How can you train people? Again, we have getting ready for the GDPR resources, the poster stickers and e-learning, training videos. We have all this on ICO site. What I'll do is, because this has become a monster now, because we're well over, let's say, reasonable time for a YouTube video, but I'm going to enter them again since captcha. Okay, sorry. Okay, so these are the videos for organizations. Yeah, use it, print it out, have people sign them off. If you employ people, make sure people are prepared for GDPR, and make sure that your company is, certain that people know that they're not to share the data in any other ways that you share it as a company. Look into, if you do have a complicated situation, again, do talk to an expert, do talk to a lawyer, and do get their advice in writing. Get it in writing. Have them sign it off. It's good practice. If a person, be able to prove everything that you've done with any compliance, any forms, anything. This is, you're not going to have horrible issues. We're not international crime lords, kingpins sharing personal data of innocent people. They're not going to, to victimize us. But just for your own security, do whatever you feel safest with. That's my general advice for everybody with everything. So do whatever you feel safest with. This is what I do, and this serves me. And if in doubt, have it in writing, have it signed off. Have a clear paper trail that you're doing something. Have a folder. Have something, just to show you're proactive. Because in many cases, even if again, God forbid, there is a mistake. This is a lot of you know, a lot depends on the fact, is it a malicious mistake or is it an honest mistake? And if you can, you know, if you basically can show that it's an honest mistake, and again, you're not on an international crime law that, you know, shares data of innocent people, then, you know, you're not going to be victimized. So ICO itself has issues at this point with not being that ready. So I'm pretty certain that they're not going to be, you know, they have mentioned that they're not going to be very harsh with these penalties, at least at the beginning. And I'm certain we can expect some further guidance from them. And once the situation is, you know, we can only be, I personally don't feel insecure about it, because I know that they will be giving us guidance further on. And if, for example, they create something for linguists, we will find out about it and we'll be able to update everything. So, you know, and we're here to help as well. And, you know, I personally, the CPD as company, and I'm sure, you know, CIOL as well, to its members. So we're all a community and we're going to help one another. So again, when collecting personal information, we tell people how we use it. Do have a leaflet if you're a company, I'd say, especially if you employ people, depending on your size. If you're, you know, a one-person shop, don't have to have a leaflet, but do have a folder, do have something that, you know, that states, have a signature, email signature saying, you know, this is how we use the data. Have a privacy notice, as you know, you have to, but you know, you do have to have it, but you don't have to necessarily publish it according to the information that I was given by the ICO. So you know, I went with yes, and this wouldn't change if I was a limited company. Then we have a process in place so we can respond to requests for the personal information. For limited companies, especially if you employ people, do have this folder. I'd say for sole traders, that was, you know, a little bit of a curio, but for a limited company, especially if there's more than one person, have it. You have to have it at this point. You have to have it written down. For example, you know, you can, if you, let's say you have one employee, right, that works for you, and like an assistant, maybe translates something, maybe helps with inquiries and things like those. You can always have this person, you know, you can clearly tell this person, again, have them sign off, you know, you're not to give out any personal data without my authorization, for example, and so on and so forth. You can have, excuse me, you can basically, whatever you do with the personal data, if the person is, you know, if all your employees connect with this data, if all your employees have the access to this data, all your employees need to be, you know, in the process. You have to have the process. For example, you can't just give out the personal data if you have a certain, let's say, a certain job title, like assistant, you know, linguistic service provider. Well, this is something. This was a question that was there, and what I have done, I've provided some resources. There are two things linked at the end of yesterday's session, and one of them is more of a general blog, and one of them is a very, very specific blog. And both of them are what I would consider reputable resources. And there is a, give me a moment, let me just take a look. Give me a moment. I'm going to be, this is a PDF. I'm just checking. This is not what I've linked yesterday, because this was at the end and it's very easy to find. But this is a PDF from the ICO, and this is 12 steps to do. So this is basically something that I would advise you had a note of. If you like to be extra prepared, you know, again, proving proactiveness, being proactive, proving proactive activities is very, very good. I don't know if there is for limited companies. This is what I'm linking. It's for all organizations. Both blogs, one of them is the general EU one, and it basically what it did, it trolled all the documents, all the information, and it came out with a huge list of things for every single organization type imaginable. There's like a huge list, and you can go through it, and you can basically just take the ones that apply to you, from the processes, to the, the limited company, and everything, anything. They have things for limited companies, they have things for sole traders, and there is one more general one that goes over the main documents that you need. There is, you have mentioned the data retention schedule. Yes, privacy notice, data retention schedule. This is what we've mentioned today. Any processes, anything, basically. The thing is, the ICO already said that there isn't a very easy, simple, straightforward answer to this. ICO already said that they're not going to be harsh on people who do not fulfill all the requirements on 25th, as long as you prove that you're moving proactively towards fulfilling everything. So if you have a privacy notice and data retention schedule, and if you're working proactively, then you're perfectly safe. They're not going to, they're not going to slap a fine on you when there are people who are in breach. So what you do need to do is, in my opinion, if you like, go to this horrifyingly, this is what I do, go to this horrifyingly large list and just go through it and see what you like to have, and have it. I like having a lot of things. And the reason why it's difficult for me to answer for this question, because I have a lot of things, and I'm not certain if everything is required what I have. So, because I do have the processes written down and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty certain that, again, I'm not saying this as a CPD, but I'm saying this as a person who has a little tiny company. So it's actually difficult to say for me, but what I am going to do is I'm going to do a I'm just going to take a look into this is data protection self-assessment organizations. Again, this is something that I publish. It's not, I'm going to link you to it. And this is something that has a lot of assessments in the sense of if you want to be extra documented, you can always record, record these assessments, and you can see, this is what it is. We are controllers, so we go into the controllers checklist, and basically we go, this is good. It's good to have consent forms, for example, but are they legally required? Technically not. It depends on the size of the company, right? So it sort of depends, and it also sort of depends on your turnover, because if you get like 50 customers a day and clamoring for services, then this would be, I'd say it would be a good idea to have some sort of templates, forms, and so on and so forth. But I can't remember if anything else is legally required and mentioned everywhere as being required. So I'd say go through the thing and just see for yourself what you'd prefer to have. I'm just taking a look through all these, but there is a very good link there which I've read before, which is an overview of GDPR, which is very useful, because what it does is it just takes you to a site, and in plain English it takes you through the whole of the regulation, and it's very good. Looking forward to have any discussions with any of you about it, but again, you don't have to. So anyway, just to reiterate, we have a process in place so we can respond to inquiries for personal data, and as an organization, I'd advise you to to have it, especially if you have more than one employee or even one. If there's more than one person, then you need a process, basically. If not, you don't have to, I think, have a huge list of processes and anything like that, but you do need to know what is happening with this data, so we don't have a situation on our hands where somebody works for you and they do something with the data they weren't supposed to, and because this is your reputation at stake, they will change a job and your company name will be besmirched, which not gonna happen, because we're doing all we can. So we keep records of people's personal information up to date and don't keep it longer than necessary. And this is basically, referring to the charter. If you have it, if you're up to date, then you're perfectly fine with it. You can say yes. And then the last one, we have measures in place to keep the personal data we hold safe and secure. And this would refer again to the employees that you have, if you have them. If not, be certain your data is safe and secure. You don't technically have to encrypt your emails, but if you feel like you're working, let's say, I worked with legal companies, and I worked with private individuals, but let's say, and I translated sometimes very sensitive information, legal. So this refers to. So this referred to a lot of people's situation that they really sensitive information that they wouldn't want people to know. So what's the best way to safeguard this information? This is something you have to answer for yourself. But, I wouldn't say going overboard is the best, idea. If you're not a huge corporation, you don't expect to be immediately hacked, then maybe you don't have to invest in bespoke firewalls or bespoke services, but do make sure that your computer is protected, that whatever data you have, if, for example, like me, you have an office in your house and your room doesn't have a door, Spain is a weird country, then maybe it's a good idea to have it under lock and key, to have a cupboard. And I have a cupboard and it's a hidden cupboard, so people don't know where it is. People even don't know that. Well, you know it, but if you went to my house, you wouldn't necessarily see a cupboard with a key to to think that, oh, there might be something there. So this is a good idea, and having basically knowing what is happening with the data is a huge step, the huge movement, and it's going to guarantee you success for later. Just know where the data is and make sure it's secure for anything, any platforms you store the data. Maybe you use the project management software. I use a lot of project management software because I'm somewhat of an enthusiast. So I have to make sure that I don't put any personal data there of anyone. For example, if I have to lose what? In time, you will know what it's like to lose. Well, I'm not a winner, but I. Oh, oh, oh. Okay, where I'm going to put you, sweetie, in a timeout. Goodbye. We're having our first spam. Anyway, so there we go. And that's it. This is the whole registration. We can go next, and we have all the data to confirm. And if anyone's too confused, do write me, talk to me. I'm there with you. I had to register myself as a business for my business, and I have to be responsible for the CPD. So, and I'm the part of your community, and I would really like to help. And please don't hold it against me. And I'll see you when I see you. Take care.